Welcome to the Art Lady channel. Today's lesson is on painted fish. And this is a very simple way of making a really cool, imaginative fish with loads of patterns and textures. That's our learning goal. We're going to be working on trying to create interesting patterns and interesting textures. And I'm going to show you some techniques on how to use your paintbrush so that you can create your own unique fish. I'm going to show you some examples from some 9 and 10-year-old students right now on how they finished their fishes and created some interesting patterns. And here's another example. So while I'm showing you the examples, I want you to be thinking about your color combinations. Now, there's no right or wrong color combination because you can invent your own colors. Look what this student did. Instead of doing blues in the ocean background, those little swirls, he chose to do red and purple. And then it just happened to be looking so great with his green fish. So it's up to you, your color combinations and color choices. Because sometimes you end up coming up with these amazing, gorgeous designs. Look at this. I just love this color combination. Amazing. Look at that fish, the detail of that fish. It's just beautiful. And that green, that lime green is beautiful. But what an odd choice for the water, the red and purple. But yet it works beautiful. So I want you to be thinking about what you like in these examples. Think about what looks really cool and good to you, because everybody has their own different opinions. This is kind of a rainbowy swirl. A lot of different color swirls. Sometimes when you have too much though, it distracts from the fish. So you might want to keep unity. And unity is like I showed you on this example. All of the wave patterns match. They're not different colors. When they match the wave patterns, then it's easier to see the difference between the background and the fish. But that kind of fish was just beautiful. And here's another example right here. This is the same color, 2 combinations for the background. All right, well, let's get started on how to make these really cool fish. Our first step is to start in the very center of our page, and we're going to find the middle, and I'm just using the colors I have here in front of me. I'm going to find the middle, and I put a small dot. This is just a guideline that artists use. And then I'm going to extend this, and I want to make sure I leave at least a hand space, okay, between the ends, because I want to have plenty of room. I could do at least 3 fingers here. Plenty of room for my tail and surrounding fish. Then I'm going to turn my paper up, and I'm going to curve this to the back of the paper, or to the edge of the paper. Curve it up to the edge of the paper here. This is going to form the fish tail. Then I'm going to take my brush, and I'm using a number 2 skinny Princeton round brush. And I'm just going to print the top here. Print my brush, and that's going to give me the boundary. Maybe I'll go over one more. That's going to just give me the boundary of my end of my fish. So I'll have some nice end to the fish. Then I'm going to decide how fat do I want to have my fish. Is it going to be more like an angelfish, or is it going to be more, an angelfish is that tall, real thick fish, remember? Or is it going to be a very skinny fish? So you're going to decide. So you're going to decide, where is the top of my fish going to end? Where is the bottom? I'm going to make my bottom one a little bit thicker. That's up to you. You can decide. Here's an example of how I did this one. Here's an example of, let me see if anybody did a real skinny one. I think most of them did pretty thick ones. This child did a pretty fat one, and look what he did. He added 2 fish. So once we've had our 1 fish, you can add more after. But once you have your guidelines, then you simply connect the dots. Holding your brush straight up like a soldier, draw from line to line. Draw from line to line. And remember, these are imaginary fish. Now, how fat do you want your tail? Give yourself some guidelines, and then connect the dots. Now, when you start off, we're going to need a base coat first. So start off painting this all one color. And if you want to use a flatter brush, because if you have bigger areas, sometimes if you use these flat brushes, this helps for bigger areas. It just fills in quicker and gives you a smoother background base color to work on. You can even switch out and get a different value. I'm going to be adding a little bit of pink to this because red and pink make light red and pink. It just adds a different value to it. Red and pink, you get a medium value pink or medium value red. There, just gives it another tone. Yeah, I'm blending it out. Now you can go ahead, same color family. Now pink and red, they're in the same family. If I added white to this, first of all, it's going to dirty my brush, but or it's going to dirty my white, but if I went into the white, it would be a tint of this color. So now I'm coming out from the tail and just doing some lines out, filling in, and this becomes my tail area. Now I'm going to let that fish dry. While the fish is drying, I'm going to work on some of my sandy beach down here. So you can choose a color that you want your ocean floor to be. I'm just going to go into this blue, and I still have pink on my brush, so I'm going to outline my sand, and blue plus the pink is going to give me what?
Purple.
Yeah, the purple right in here. Now I very carefully dip in so I'm not contaminating this. And then I'm giving this nice little purpley color here as it mixes and blends. So I'm giving myself a sandy floor. Here's an example with some sandy floor. And as I'm waiting for my fish to dry, and then I'm going to give myself some coral or something down at the bottom. If you want coral, if you want rocks, whatever you want down at your bottom. I'm going to give myself some, and I'm just using the colors here. I probably would pick some better colors, but I'm just going to stick in some bumps down here with this green, some bumps for rock or coral, and then I'm going to give myself some branches of coral here just to fill in my background. Match it on this side. See how that brush, this brush is doing most of the work for me because it's a nice wide flat brush. There's some tall coral. Whenever you add stuff like coral or little designs, if you do it in groups of odd numbers like 3, 5, vary the height. Look, I made some come down low, made some come up high. So you vary the height. And then I can go back and add some pattern or texture to this. If I want to put some texture in with another, just dabbing. I can also use the back end of my brush, dipping in, and this will give me really tiny, small, look at that, dots. Sometimes the coral has these cavities in it or little holes all over it where the creatures lived or once lived or is living or once lived, and then I would fill in like that. Now, if you do one coral, these are the same. If I add one kind of pattern here, I want to repeat the same pattern to every piece of coral. That's what's called unity. Everything matches together. So if I did, say, rainbow stripes here, or diamonds and stars or hearts, each one different, it's going to be too confusing to the painting when you read your painting and look at your painting. And it's also going to be, besides confusing, it's not going to look like they match. If this species of coral is the same as this species and this species, so it should all have the same patterning designs. By doing these little tiny dots, we're adding texture. It's creating a feeling of roughness on this, and texture is how something feels. Now, once I've done all this, I can then add, now my fish is drying, I can then add the details to the fish. I can do some lips if I want to do some open mouth, and I'm going to use black so you can see it, but you can choose any color. A dark purple would look really great on this, or a dark blue, dark teal. I'm going to just press, this is so you can see it better, And if I want an open lip mouth, I lay my brush on the side and I press again. I'm forming almost the letter V's. Look at that with the brush, just by pressing my brush. Now I can go ahead and do an eyeball. I can give an eye color first. Let me see if I have a brush that'll do that. I can give a little bit of an eye color first. And I always exaggerate the eyeballs and make them a little bit bigger. And then I can take my brush and very carefully, and I'm wiping a lot of the paint off so I can draw around this. And I draw with just the tip of that brush layers of detail for the eyeballs. And then I'm pressing in the pupil, the center of the eyeball. And from here, I can design my fins. Now, whenever you make fins, they go back toward the tail. So I'm slanting diagonally back. And this is the flat brush to get skinny lines, or you can use a skinny brush. I'm touching the edge of let me tip it down so you can see. I'm touching the end of my fish and slope it back toward the tail. Underneath, slope it back toward the tail. These fins don't poke out to the front of him. They swim with him and go back through the water. Okay, back that way. If you want to add a side gill or fin, you can. Let's see if this will show up. That's not showing up, so I'm going to add a lighter color. That's still not showing up that good. Now, this is the time where you can use your imagination now. And you can put in your patterns and designs, stripes, spots. Sometimes, like clownfish, they have these giant spots on the bottom. I'm just using my brush and pressing. That's one way of adding pattern. I can use, like I showed you before, the back end up here. Say I want to add some detail around my eyeball. I can use the back of my brush to press. Now, if I want to add some stripes to him, I can do it very neatly, and I can do it like a tiger stripe even. But I'm varying some long, some short. Some long, I'm going to go right over that fin because I can't see that fin very well. Some long, some shorter. And I'm getting a little bit thicker here as I go skinny. It's tapering, going from fat to skinny. And that's just demonstrating brush control. This will make it a medium length. Remember, vary the length. This will be real short right here. And so you can add accent and detail. If you want to do your background for your swirls in the ocean, you can, I don't paint all this in. I just want to give a little bit of detail. You can do tiny dots of bubbles if you'd like. But if you want to do some swirls in the ocean, you can stick some swirls in. Whoops. And I would do this with some very light colors. This is a bit dark. I didn't wash my brush. I don't want to take the time. But do some real light swirls. And you don't need lots of swirls. Just a little bit to show that it's the movement of the water. And keep it lighter than the fish. If these swirls were too dark, it's gonna pull attention away from your fish. So you want this to be very light. I can then even go over this with some white even and do some white areas. Or use a thin brush and trace these edges. Some of the kids traced, did I trace the edges over here? I was tracing some here to give your swirls. So it's up to you how you're gonna finish your fish. And like I said before, some kids added more fish. Look at this great example here. Some kids added more fish in the background, corals, sea life, seashells, but get your fish done first because that's the subject of your painting, you know, and then get some kind of grounding and then do some of the waves. If you want to put other creatures in your sea life, in your sea painting, do all of the creatures first. Because if you put all these waves on, it's going to be hard for you to do your other creatures. Maybe you want to paint a little octopus or a Portuguese man-o-war or some cool jellyfish. So get all of that done first, and the last thing you do is the wavy swirls, if you even have any room. And then if you want to put bubbles on, you can. You don't have to. These are first grade art examples. The students are 6 years old. We're at the beginning of the school year, so we've just entered first grade, and we have some beautiful fish examples to show you if you'd like to watch and see what 6-year-olds have done. This one has great coral here, showing really great brush control. Nice color combinations. Here we have some vibrant fish colors with some nice bright sand and then some coral. Here's some neat patterning that was done and some nice little bubbles that were done. Here we have lots of patterning on that fish. Beautiful color combinations. You might be inspired by looking at some of these first grade student art for color, the color combinations. We learned about values, light and dark values of color. The students had to do a darker value on the fish patterning. That's a nice color combination here. And there's the last of the first grade fish examples.